Watch this entire video and I promise you it will be one of the most comprehensive Seth Rich murder videos on the web. Let's start from the beginning. Seth Rich was shot in the back twice and he died at the hospital. The media immediately dubbed it a botched robbery, yet nothing was taken. Watch, wallet, phone, all of it there. They never even once gave it the mention or a thought of a murder or assassination. They went right to botched robbery. Nothing was taken, but yeah, it was a robbery. Last year, WikiLeaks offered $20,000 for his death. The DNC, the Democratic National Committee who was employing Seth Rich, they offered $0. Now before I get started with all the evidence, I want to explain to people, WikiLeaks is not a hacker or a leaker. WikiLeaks is a publication that takes information, usually from whistleblowers who are sick of crime and corruption, who leak information from the inside. WikiLeaks has a 100% accuracy rating and they have never published false material. Never. Questions around Seth Rich's botched robbery murder started when WikiLeaks offered the reward, and also Julian Assange said this in an interview last year.
Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
On top of that, WikiLeaks published that Guccifer 2.0, who the US media was calling a Russian spy, of course, although he said he wasn't Russian. They showed his Twitter direct message to an actress named Robin Young saying, "The name of my leaker was Seth." Now that's quite a bit of evidence just right there. How come all the media sources are just calling it a baseless conspiracy and not mentioning any of that evidence? Many believe Seth Rich was the leaker of the DNC emails, which the media has been blaming Russia for. If Seth Rich was indeed the leaker of the DNC emails, that would shatter the whole Russian narrative. But let's be honest, this blame Russia for everything narrative didn't start after the election. It actually started before the election when they started blaming Bernie Sanders, insinuating that he was a Russian spy for having a honeymoon in the Soviet Union. First, they blackballed Bernie Sanders. Then they said Russia hacked the DNC. Then they said Russia hacked the election. Then they said WikiLeaks was Russian. Then they said Russia hacked the Vermont utility grid. The only problem with that Washington Post story, after being shared millions of times, that it was debunked as completely fake news. They also started investigating American news sources who didn't agree with them, claiming that they were working with Russia. Is all of this Russian news a cover-up for something? It sure seems like it, since the story keeps changing, a lot of fake news is being pushed, and they're trying to cover up the Seth Rich murder. But last week something big happened. A private investigator hired by the Rich family and paid by a third-party source spoke to Fox News, and he said that he believed that Seth Rich was in contact with WikiLeaks, and when he went to the DC police, something weird happened. They looked at him in the eye and said, "Rod, we were told to back down from this case. We can't investigate any further." That's highly suspicious and highly unusual. You can see what Rod had to say here.
Here's the problem with all of this. I don't even know where the computer is. I checked with the police department. They said they don't know where the computer is, and the FBI. They say they don't have the computer. Now, where did this information come from in terms of knowing or believing, I should say, that Seth Rich could have been in communications with WikiLeaks? There was a federal investigator that was involved on the inside of the case, a person that's very credible. And I'll tell you, let me just say this, Sean, I don't like to suggest things without saying the person's name. But I can't say the person's name because that person would be thrown under the bus, and I can't do that. But This person, we checked him out. We have to check him out. Very credible. He said he laid eyes on the computer and he laid eyes on the case file. And he came across very credible. When you look at that with the totality of everything else that I found in this case, it's very consistent for a person with my experience to begin to think, well, perhaps there were some email communications between Seth and WikiLeaks. Every time I talk with the police department, though, Sean, every time I talk to the police department about the WikiLeaks or the emails, it's automatically shut down. That discussion is automatically shut down.
Now keep in mind, WikiLeaks, who has an 100% accuracy in their publishings, spoke to Seth Rich, offered a reward for his death, showed a DM from Guccifer 2.0 saying Seth was the leaker, shared articles of Rod Wheeler saying what he just said, yet the media seems very set on calling this a conspiracy theory and trying to cover it up as quickly as possible. Why could this be? Well, for starters, Hillary Clinton's campaign manager's name is John Podesta. The book Shattered recently revealed that within 24 hours of Hillary Clinton's campaign loss, they hatched the story of the Russia interference in the election. It was John Podesta and Robbie Mook. So all of this Russia news, all of this Russia scare, according to this book, was actually a hatched plan to try to get Trump out of office and regain power. But like I said before, it actually started earlier. They called Bernie Sanders a Russian. Hillary Clinton was gung-ho on putting a no-fly zone in Syria, and she wanted to shoot down Russian aircrafts. Back to John Podesta. He had a lot of controversy surrounding him last year, but of course the media just dubbed that a conspiracy and quickly moved on. Amongst all that controversy, the Washington Post made him a contributor. So John Podesta works for the Washington Post. The Washington Post also published the fake Russian news story I told you about, among many others. The Washington Post also calls Seth Rich a fake news conspiracy. So John Podesta works for the Washington Post. They keep pushing fake news about Russia, and they're trying to cover up the Seth Rich murder. Coincidence? I'll let you decide. To look even further, John Podesta's ex-wife is on the board of DC Police. This is public knowledge. It's on her Wikipedia page, and it also has a link on the actual website. So if Rod Wheeler is indeed telling the truth about the DC Police not wanting to investigate Seth's murder, that could possibly be part of the reason. Now, why are so many news sources calling this a fake news conspiracy? What I find funny about all of these articles calling it a conspiracy is they're not showing any of the evidence that I've just shown you. If it's such a conspiracy, why don't you show all of the piling evidence? Instead, these news publications pretend like all of that evidence doesn't even exist. Maybe if we act like it doesn't exist, you'll believe it doesn't exist. That's their strategy. Another big part of their strategy to bury this Seth Rich story is saying that Seth Rich's family doesn't want anybody to talk about it. They don't want people to investigate it. They want people to drop the story. But all of these news sources saying that aren't coming straight directly from Seth Rich's family. It's coming from their family spokesperson. Only problem? Their family spokesperson is actually a Democratic Party crisis management PR person. Now, isn't that pretty weird? It makes sense because this family spokesperson is saying, well, even if we do find out evidence that he was connected to WikiLeaks, well, it's still a conspiracy. It still doesn't mean anything. Of course it doesn't. Yeah, why would evidence mean anything? Let's just drop it. It's a botched robbery, right? That's the story we're going with. But this massive blast of news saying, drop the story, don't talk about it. It's a conspiracy. It's fake news. His family doesn't want to talk about it. Doesn't line up with the fact that Seth Rich's brother is running a GoFundMe account to get another private investigator and have more funding. It also doesn't line up with the fact that Seth Rich's parents released this video.
Hi everyone, this is Joel, I'm Mary, and we're Seth's parents, and we just wanted to say thank you for helping us. We're just so warmed that you would step forward and try to help us find the murderer of our son and try to find the two that killed him and make the world a safer place. Seth always believed in people helping each other and that the world would be a greater place if more people did, and we are just so happy and from the bottom of our hearts can't say thank you enough for helping us find who killed Seth. Thank you so much.
So we're supposed to believe all of these trusted news sources calling it a conspiracy and fake news, even though Seth Rich's brother and his parents are saying the complete opposite, and the only one speaking on behalf of them is a Democratic PR person, even Wikipedia parrots the media lies and calls it a right-wing conspiracy, even though the first people that cared about it were progressive and Bernie Sanders supporters before any Republicans, right-wing people, or Trump supporters even knew about it. But just wait, the biggest bombshell of all comes from internet activist and Mega Upload founder Kim.com. Kim said recently, "I knew Seth Rich. I was a part of it. I'm going to tell you on Tuesday." Of course, all the mainstream media immediately tried to smear Kim.com and say all of these things because they're scared of the truth coming out, but luckily Sean Hannity jumped on it and is saying he's going to interview Kim.com. Remember that Democratic PR family spokesperson that said, even if we find out Seth Rich is connected to WikiLeaks, it doesn't matter. It seems like he knew that the evidence was coming and he's just trying to cover up on all fronts. Now no evidence matters, even if we have evidence that he was connected, that they had reason to try to have him killed. It doesn't matter, just go away, stop thinking about it, stop talking about it. Apparently that's what they think everybody's gonna do. We'll wait and see. How come Sean Lucas died right after he processed a lawsuit against the DNC? This video was released a month before Sean Lucas died. How come anybody who questions Hillary Clinton, the DNC, or the Democratic establishment always winds up dead? There's tons of stories like this. People investigate, people try to look deeper into it, and all of a sudden they wound up dead. There are way too many examples of this for me to share right now. But of course the media says they're all conspiracies. Don't look at it, don't think about it. It's Russian, don't you dare think with your mind. Don't you dare put one and one together. It's all conspiracy. There's no evidence anywhere. Don't even look. It's easy to do that type of thing and get away with it when you own most of the TV news stations and you control and own most of the internet news publications like they do. The real question is, at what point are people going to see through the deception and say enough is enough? Well, actually, it already kind of happened with this presidency, and that's why the media is freaking out, because they just lost control of power. And they're very close with this Seth Rich story from losing everything. All of the media narratives, all of the lies they've been throwing out, all of the deception, it's this close. I'm not a detective. I'm not a whistleblower. I'm not a leaker. I'm not a hacker. I'm simply an American and a human being on this planet Earth who is looking at information that's public knowledge. I'm not even digging deep and releasing classified material or going somewhere I shouldn't go. This is all available for you and everybody else. It's just, I guess, they expect us not to look or not to care or to believe what they say, even though the truth says the complete opposite. I don't understand the strategy, but I know I'm not alone. Millions of people care about this Seth Rich murder. Millions of people aren't gonna let it go. Millions of people aren't going to write it off as a conspiracy or say that, well, even if he is tied to WikiLeaks, it doesn't mean he was assassinated because a Democrat PR person told me so. I know I'm not alone. Why do I have to make this journalistic video? And why do I have to tell more truth and do more research than 99.9% of the stories that came out about him? How come all the it's fake news and it's conspiracy articles don't mention any of the evidence that I just mentioned that is clear as day? It seems a lot less like they're trying to solve this murder and a lot more like they're trying to cover something up. You can decide for yourself. Share this video if you like what I was talking about, and God bless you and God bless Seth's family. Let's bring justice for them and peace for all. Much love.